Radio, so jump in the chat room if you can. This is show number 400.
400, there's nothing else. It's just 400.
It's 00 and 400. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solaris' show, there was a special edition show today. There really was. And that had Ro, Hijacker, Bill Grant, and Steve Travesty on. My goodness me, there's some blast from the past. I haven't caught up with Bill for a while, or Steve for that matter. It was good hearing Hijacker's voice, so hey, shout out to Hijacker as well. And Ro, our producer, hey, thanks for your time and effort, buddy. Thank you. It only cost $5 US a month to subscribe to the archives, and I recommend you do that so you can get access to not our shows but Solaris' shows, but all of the shows. I said two butts in the same sentence, didn't I? All of them. And you can listen in your own time. I think that's really important. That's what I do. Meki and I, we are Shiny Side Out, and we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Where I live, it's the Dark and Jung people. And Meki?
The Rock people, the Rock.
And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, Meki, it's been some crazy times since we had our last show.
Crazier, even.
Crazier.
Yes, no, you're right. They have been crazy. Go ahead. Tell everybody just how crazy everything has been.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So, look, we're clearly aware, everyone, I suppose, you might get some international news wherever you live. The fires have been very intense, and we had the highest level ever of fire warning. So, it's low, moderate, I don't know what the other one is, high possibly, and then extreme and catastrophic. And catastrophic was introduced 10 years ago, and they never used it up until last Tuesday. And they even, in advance, issued a statewide national emergency in advance of that, which meant that all of the fireys who were going to be doing any work at all couldn't get fired from their jobs by leaving whatever they were doing and calling to action, as a call to action. And also they've allowed the military to be called upon because of that national emergency, so they can utilize the federal military to be able to assist. Now that could be martial law, it could be using some of their water freighters and things like that. There's a whole bunch of assets that become accessible in that situation. But this is the thing. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see the page I've got open. But if you don't, I'll just describe it to you, and I'll also paste a copy of it into the chat room for everyone to see, because I think that's really important. This is only released a couple of hours ago, and it's New South Wales bushfires destroy nearly 500 homes as crews scramble to build containment lines. Some interesting parts of this article were the area statewide so far that's been burned is 1.6 million hectares. It's more than during the past 3 bushfire seasons combined. And they're still out of control, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'll just click on the one that's nearest me, and that little window that pops up says out of control, and that's been burning for 4 weeks. And the area that it is, if you can compare the area of Sydney against the area of the bushfire burnt, and where I live up here in its path, which is Gosford, the Central Coast, they say that this fire will reach the ocean. That's the word, Mackie. How's that, eh? How's that? To be told that the state's largest single fire will hit the ocean, and there's nothing that they can do to stop it. The entire Central Coast is up for grabs as far as fire is concerned. Anyway, what else was there? So nearly 500 houses. It's actually 476 homes that were destroyed. 2,600 of them were saved. So good on you guys, all the fireys who lent a hand. We have rural fire service here, not just the the fire services which are the New South Wales fire service. They are for domestic normally only, and industrial and have whatnot. But bushfires is the rural fire service, and I happen to fall into that zone. And there's a fire station less than a kilometre from my house. Not even that far. But when you have a look, I'm just going to scroll down, and you can see the area of the fires going up towards the north coast of New South Wales, still within the state. Someone pointed out to me recently that this is actually, this entire area, all the way going up to Queensland, is where the high-speed rail was going to go. And it's like, what? Maybe there's a thing, and not only here too, Meki, but also in California.
Yeah, I know, but
it's hearsay.
That's stretching it a little.
It is. I had to say it because it's out in the media, right? I'm not saying that I believe it. But look, the threat for me has not ceased. It's going to get worse, and the season hasn't even begun. The fire season officially starts in December, when summer starts. So this is a pre-summer period fire. I was out all day today with my whippersnipper, cutting our bush down, flattening it, making it as dirt as possible. But it's not going to stop the real fire, because a fire can... Meki, did you know they said that the fire can reach 100 metres from the fire trees. The trees that are on fire, 100 metres away, things can spontaneously combust.
Yes.
Because of the heat. Like you were talking about it this week. So I just have to say, put it out there. That's the state of it. And if I need to, I've always got a laptop and a connection to the internet, and I'll do the show regardless. That's just the way it is. And it's funny Meki, that this bushland that's on fire is so far larger than the bush between Bathurst and Sydney.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
It boggles the mind. Now, people probably don't understand this. You have to understand that Australia, is a continent in roughly the same in size as the continental United States of America, right? So when we're talking about these bushfires, they're the size of individual states in the United States, or individual countries in Europe, for example. These bushfires are easily the size of, Austria, for example, or Belgium, which are the smaller countries. And even some of the bushfires are approaching the size of Germany. So you have to understand that these are massive, really massive bushfires. And that the area that's being burned is larger than again, some national territories of certain countries. It is a significant thing that's happening.
I mean, I wonder. Just keep going, Meki, and I'm just going to quickly do a search for something. I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's all good. Yeah. Look, and it's a very serious thing. It's a very dangerous thing. But there's other things that we considered as well. The fire itself, of course, is horrendously dangerous and can cause property damage, loss of life. But there's a knock-on effect, which is around the air quality, of course. And maybe certain hazardous materials that are being burned in the process. There's the economic fallout, right? You have to rebuild insurance claims and all the hullabaloo that comes with it as well. The overall impact of these fires is significant, and some people have decided to up and move. And I've advised some people that, in my opinion, this is the new normal. Okay, these bushfire seasons. And this is funny, Abbott gave us the data unwittingly, but he made an argument that we've always had bushfires. So he listed the key dates of catastrophic bushfires in the past. And the argument that he made was that they're becoming more and more frequent. There used to be like 80 years between bushfires, 150 years ago, and now they're occurring every year, 2, 3, 4 years. So we need to understand that this is impacting us more, but it's also impacting us more, Dave, because there are a lot more people living in these areas. There's simply more people around to be affected by bushfires, right? And that doesn't take away from the fact, though, that there are more bushfires and they cover a larger area than ever before.
So true.
And like you said quite rightly, 3 times the size has already burned, compared to the last 3 bushfire seasons, if you will.
Oh, it's greater than the total of the last 3. Yeah,
exactly. Now, but bear in mind, we haven't even entered bushfire season yet. But officially speaking,
Yeah. So to reach the ocean, it'll double in size. That's the single fire that's threatening me. But there's still, I think 75 other fires that are still burning up and down the coastline, and some of those made it to the ocean, as you might have seen some, heroic photographs of people, stuck on the beach taking photos of their fire at the sea. At the sea. I know, right? There isn't any place. There's no single place on the in the entire Central Coast where I live, which is a halfway point between Sydney and Newcastle. There is no single place that anyone can go, or the Central Coast could go to be safe. There is no single place for it, because it's all bush to the sea.
Just give us an idea of what kind of distance we have. How far is it from you to Sydney? Like how many kilometers? Right?
About 65 kilometres, and likewise to Newcastle.
Okay, so we got 130 kilometre, which is about 100 mile, 80, 90 mile stretch of coastal area that has nowhere to go, that is safe. Think about that.
That's right. Yep. And it's a lot. And so I know people already who are planning just to move next week, just to go down to Sydney or stay at a hotel in Sydney or something like that. Yeah. Just move away and be safe, because then they don't have to worry about it. If the house gets destroyed by fire, it doesn't matter, right? And that's I think the biggest message.
You can rebuild. What matters now is lives, right? I mean, we're at the stage now where lives are the main concern. That's where it's at.
And the other point I should make is that last week, because of the catastrophic rating they put on this clear and present danger, as I'm talking movie titles today, was that everyone got the opportunity to make a plan. Everyone got the opportunity to rehearse, to get their stuff in order, to be able to make their go bags, have discussions with their family and children, and make, maybe if you're all separated and you've got a plan, the plan is to meet at that single location, right? All of these things came up. Now, as preppers, I swear we've been talking about this. What year is it? 19, right? We've been talking about this since 2011, about prepping. On the show here, we've been talking about that since we started the show.
Pretty much.
So, if I don't have it together by now, I think there's problems. I think I got a problem, right? If you, the listener, haven't got it together, then you're not practicing it enough. You have to really be prepared. Anything can happen at any time.
Oh, completely.
This is one of those things, Mickey, that where we have enough warning to do whatever we need to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We have a question from the from the chat room, and the question is: do we ever have something called hairy panic? Hairy, as in hairy, as in your hair, and hairy panic, also known as Panicum effusum, is a grass native to inland Australia. It occurs in every mainland state as well as in New Guinea. So I guess the answer would be yes. We have a. Well, not in my neighborhood necessarily, but maybe you have it where you are, Dave.
What is it? Tell me more about it.
Oh, it's just a grass. It's a native Australian grass. I'm not sure what the question entails or why you asked about it.
Yeah, okay.
But certainly in my neighborhood, we have mostly imported varieties, very, very, very hardy grasses, blue grasses and whatnot. So hairy panic grasses we do not have.
All right.
It's a very it's so hairy. There's a picture here as well. It's actually really hairy, very bushy, very. It's
oh, I've seen it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
I do.
It's
almost like woolly. It's like a woolly mammoth kind of grass.
I don't. I've seen the videos of it. I know I don't have that.
Yeah, so this comes from Rolaris black owl.
Yes.
Very interesting. So
I know who that is. That's
it's not.
That's Ro.
Solaris.
No, it's Ro.
Oh, it's Ro. Okay.
Because Ro took over Solaris' show that preceded ours.
Oh, okay.
And so that's a very play on words, right? Well done.
And I like it. So sorry, Ro. No, we don't have it here. But if that ever caught fire, good night,
Woof.
wherever they are, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But no, we don't have. I don't have it in my neighborhood.
No, likewise.
I have seen it out bush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dave doesn't have it either. But good question.
The question I wanted to answer before as well was we talk about 1.6 million hectares, but in the imperial sense, Mackie, that is 4 million acres.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a nice sized country.
Yeah, well, it is. California, I think California is about 100 million. So it's 4% of California.
Yep, I'll have it. Thank you very much. That'll do me.
I have some shiny beads and a mirror. If anyone's interested.
I'll trade you.
The other part of the only other thing outside of all the panic, because I think I've panicked myself away now. I don't need to panic at all. I have a plan in place. Family's set. We know what we have to do, and we know where we're going to meet. We know what's reasonably safe for us to attend to, and what to escape from. Right. So we have our guidelines. Mackie, there's some stupid news getting around, and I've checked, and I can't verify any of it, to be honest. And that was that Donald Trump had been admitted to hospital with chest discomfort or something like that. I saw. Look, 2 hours ago, after the news broke about this thing, he basically, Donald Trump himself said in a tweet, visited a great family of a young man under major surgery at the amazing Walter Reed Medical Center. Those are truly some of the best doctors anywhere in the world. Also began phase 1 of my yearly physical. Everything very good. Great. We'll complete next year. So in his own words, he didn't, there was no, it's the castle of where he was tweeting, in his dying breaths, right? What do you mean the castle of Well, that's what it says. You mean someone carved Sorry. It's the world that my poor brain lives in. You're getting it unfiltered. So that to be honest, outside of that, and all the world's fires, because we've got fires in Western Australia, South Australia, in New South Wales. There's California on fire. Venice is flooded. The second highest in 50 years.
Yeah, but that's not climate change, dude. It's just sinking. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, none of this climate change.
That's right. That's right.
That's crazy talk.
I had one of my Facebookers this week saying how all the islands in the Pacific are sinking, and that it's not climate change.
It's just subsidence. That's
yeah, locally, because it apparently wasn't happening anywhere else.
You got some shoddy contractors, the foundations just not what they were, and they're just sinking into the ocean. That's what happened. What?
That's all right. That's all right. You know what? Do you know what stopped that conversation point blank? And it was, I was holding the metaphoric gun of, like, in their face of, well, you know what? I wonder where some people gain their inherited opinions. I wonder how they're able to defend an inherited opinion without doing their own research or looking at any of the data. And then I got an angry message back saying, well, I use my eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I use my eyes too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that segue. Because I'm sure you didn't intend it, but it's an excellent segue.
I'm glad.
And I will grab it because it truly is. And it is the inherited opinion that the researchers battle the most. So just to level set where we are, this is show number 400.
Woohoo!
And the last, yeah, I know, it's crazy. 400 shows. When Dave called me all these years ago and says, "Hey, do you want to be on the radio?" Oh, okay. What are we talking about? Oh, whatever, man. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about something. I didn't think that we'd be here for 400 shows, and I'm hoping that everybody is still enjoying the brand of radio information, entertainment, maybe a little bit, that we bring to you out in listener land. Many things have changed. A lot of good people have passed, and I think this is probably a good moment to acknowledge that we've lost some great people along the way, not least of which, of course, Nighthawk, Mike Ringley, and the station owner, the foundational owner, really, right? That's the important thing here. The person that got this thing off and running. But many others have passed along the way, both researchers, some people we interviewed and then have passed in the intervening years. Some amazing minds, some really great people, just good people, yeah? And some fantastic people also that were connected to the station, and hosts, as well as, I guess you want to call them support staff, without which the station couldn't exist. And it puts in perspective that, all of this is temporary, but I really do hope that what we're going to bring to you over the next few weeks as part of our, drawing the bow and trying to connect everything that we've talked about over these past 8 years, will show you that it is not all that doom and gloom. It is not all necessarily going to end with you finishing your last breath, but that it is rather a much larger picture. And we've drawn on this now over the years from very many researchers. And the funny thing is, it doesn't matter where your journey starts. If you are truly committed to researching these materials, most of us end up in very similar places. We had Jim Mars talking to us, we had Lloyd Pye talking to us. Lucky.
Jim Mars is the other fellow.
I know, and we were just lucky to get a chance to speak to a whole bunch of people, and we'll mention some of these a little later as well. The point, though, is that we are all ending up in a similar space, seeing the connections, seeing the threads that link it all together. And to your earlier point, the armchair critics, the inherited opinion makers, or takers, I should say, not the makers, they're the takers. They are the ones that we have to battle the hardest, the trolls. It is amazing, and we've included some of these examples in our show paper here for the hypothesis for the next few weeks. People that just the debunkers, right? Oh no, this is what it's been thoroughly debunked, and then I follow the links. Just like, I'm talking about petrified footprints. It could be UFOs, could be anything, right? And you follow it down the path, and you realize, no, it hasn't been thoroughly debunked. They're questioning the validity of the information. That's cool, right? And they're questioning the accuracy of the data. They're questioning the analysis as well as interpretation, which is all fair enough. But there has been no thorough debunking of anything that I've seen. And there's a show at the moment, Dave, which I very much enjoy, and I'm sure it's been around for a while, but I only came across it recently, which is called the Unexplained Files. And it is very different to most of the show of that genre. Not at all sensational, not at all interested in pushing a certain face. Like I said, you never see the hosts. There aren't any hosts of the show. All you see is the eyewitnesses, or people that have direct information to relay to us about a certain phenomenon. I want to just very quickly, before we go into the text, talk about one specific episode I watched last night as I was preparing, or still preparing some of the show notes. And this was around spontaneous human combustion. Now, if you don't know, spontaneous human combustion is a phenomenon whereby a human body burns to ash, okay? Bones, internal organs, everything, without much heat damage to the rest of the room, wherever it might be. That's the phenomenon. And
right? And to be honest, that's the specific. Hands and feet are usually left intact.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really strangely, you see these feet sticking out of boots sometimes, but sometimes, in some cases, it's a thorough consumption of the body. But you're right, hands and feet are oddly enough left alone. So they discussed the wicker theory. Now, the wicker theory is that it is the fat, the human fat in the body, that fuels the fire, and it actually smolders
the
along.
wick. Yes, the
like
wick
a
theory.
exactly.
Yeah.
Bingo, right? It's like, yes, it's the wicker effect. Anyway, or the wick effect. So it's really around this low smoldering fire that will eventually, reduce the body to ash. Now, that actually doesn't work out very well because the heat that it generates just isn't enough to burn down the guts and the bones. So believe it or not, the last thing to burn in a human body are the bones and the intestines. The intestines are extremely hard to burn.
Very little fat to burn as a wick.
Correct, and it just doesn't burn very well. In fact, in a crematorium, and I don't want to lie here, but I think it reaches about 12 or 1500 degrees Celsius, thereabouts. The body doesn't burn down. The body does not burn down completely. The bones that are usually left out of that, they are then put into a grinder.
That's right, they're ground, yeah.
Yeah, they're ground to a fine powder. So a crematorium doesn't actually burn the body, and that's a controlled burn room, right? And you can make that pretty hot, but it doesn't burn it all out. But in these spontaneous human combustion cases, the body burns to ash, all of it. I mean, like but again, without causing any damage to the surroundings. There was one case very specifically mentioned by the show, and I want to go through this a little bit. There was a person that had this happen to them. Clearly this person burned to death, to ash. There was no damage to a fridge handle, a plastic fridge handle, which was probably less than a meter away. There was no damage to some plastic, I think, wrapping or something.
And there was nylon curtains that didn't even melt.
Melting, not even crinkling. There was not even a heat crinkling. Like when you get something too close, it just crinkles. Nothing, zero. What it means, there was very little radiant heat, but enough heat, nonetheless, to burn the body to ash. So there's another professor that came up with the theory of acetone. So what he believed is that, and this is true, our body does produce acetone, in case you don't know that, especially when you're sick. So acetone is highly flammable, in case you're wondering. It's usually found in nail polish remover, but our body does produce it. Now, the problem with that is, though, with that particular theory, well, it's actually really ingenious, and this is a professor that like a mainstream scientist that says, the wick effect just doesn't work. We have tested it. It doesn't explain the phenomenon at all. But he believes that the acetone theory could explain it. Now, the problem with the acetone theory is that the levels of acetone that you are required to have in your body for this to occur, for this combustive heat, are so high that you'd probably be dead.
Yeah.
Well before any fire gets you. And there was a survivor interviewed in that show of a spontaneous human combustion event. So this person had this happen to them twice, and lucky both times his buddy was with him, and they managed to stop the fire. But it just spontaneously started on him. And when he went to the doctor said, "This looks like it started from the inside."
Yeah.
And this guy wasn't sick. So the acetone theory states that you have to be quite sick for this acetone to be produced. And he says, no, it was in good physical health. The guy himself was a Vietnam vet as well, right? And they showed these people, interviewed the people, face to face. They had all the professors, all the researchers there as well. It's a really great show. My point is, though, that the show then goes, well, we really don't know. I mean, we've shown you the theories. These are the theories. These are the prevailing theories that are put forward. And these are the problems with these theories. Make up your own mind, right? And nobody that was involved, the police department, the fire department that had been called to investigate this specific case, nobody could make heads or tails of it. Yeah, how this could have happened. And these have happened, a number of times now. I think there's about 200 odd cases in the last 200 or 300 years that we have recorded. Interesting enough, Charles Dickens in Bleak House, one of his novels, also mentions human spontaneous combustion as something that happened in the book. Again, obviously it was a fictional thing, but clearly it was a phenomenon that he was aware of, Charles Dickens, back in in the 18th century. Anyway,
so Mackie, remember the lady who was brought into hospital that when they cut her open, one of the doctors collapsed or something?
Oh yes,
yeah,
there was sick. Yeah, 100%.
Like, putrid blood. It was so bad that people collapsed from it, right? Look,
So
it's possible. I'll hand it back to you. It's possible, except maybe there was like an alien and a ray gun is as plausible as, you know, like one of those ones from
yeah.
Mars Attacks, right? I want to be friends. Um, I can only imagine because look, the Wick theory. I know I've seen that tested on cadavers. It doesn't work.
Yeah, correct. So it works to a certain extent, right? But again, the bones don't all burn up as well as they do in the actual cases. But so the reason I'm mentioning all of this is because the question has always been, well, why have a show like this? You know, it's a good platform, and why don't we push a political agenda, and why don't we promote ourselves more and do this and that? I mean, what's the point of the show? What's the point? The point of the show is this: there's something very very wrong, either with the world, right, or with the things that we're taught about the world. Now, I believe the world is just the way it is. The world, there it is. You take it or leave it, whatever. The way we look at it, what we've taught about it, our understanding of it is deeply flawed. Deeply flawed, because they are. And Dave and I are going to go through this in just a second. There are a multitude of mysteries and special circumstances and cases which just cannot be explained by mainstream science or mainstream philosophy at this point. Even there's just so much wrong with the world. We just don't have the answer. And shows like the Unexplained Files are really fantastic because they're making it easily consumable. Right? You watch it for 40 minutes, you get 3 or 4 cases of different things, and you go, wow, this is very interesting, right? And then, of course, you can do your own research. And when you do, you realize, oh, wow, there really is something here, right? But nobody looks at this in detail. Nobody spends any time investigating it. And this is a very interesting thing that the survivor of 2 events, as it were, said in the end, this is what they just before the end credits, he said, come on, scientists, keep an open mind. I mean, isn't that your job? To help people and make sure that this doesn't happen, at least understand what's going on. And he was really pleading, saying, hey, because it happened to him, right? I mean, imagine yourself. And I'm not saying this is a very widespread phenomenon. Like I said, 200 cases in the last, 150, 200 years, whatever. Not a lot. But imagine that happened to you. You just all of a sudden catch fire. I mean, what?
Yeah, I know. That's
insane.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recover from that too. And then and if you didn't have anyone with you and you couldn't stop the fire yourself, that's it. You're done, right? So it's something we don't know, but the world as we know it, the world as we find it every day is not the world that we're taught about. It's a very different animal. Goethe, a German poet, I guess, philosopher, said, and you probably have heard this before, there are more things between heaven and earth than our school wisdom has taught us. Es gibt mehr Dinge zwischen Himmel und Erde, als unsere Schulweisheit sich träumen ließ. And that's true. What I said. And that's true. There is a lot more mystery. And we don't even have to try. Dave and I don't have to try. 400 shows. Yes, we've repeated some, we've expanded some, but there's a lot of material out there. There's material for another 400 shows very easily. Because we've done a fairly broad sweep, but once we start to get into detail, trust me, there's a lot more to find and to go into, and then you talk to people, Dave, and you have the same experience. We talk to people, and they tell us these stories, and we go, oh wow, but they say, oh, but don't mention my name.
Yeah,
don't mention me. And that was the same thing when I watched the Unexplained Files again. The pilot's talking about UFO encounters. No, face blurred out, voice altered. Don't mention me. Don't show my face. I'll tell you the story, but I don't want to be identified. Right? These are not people looking for publicity. These are not people, because this is usually what these are. They're looking for attention. They're trying to make money. No, but it's bothering them so much. They're coming forward anyway. Right? It is detrimental to the career, to their life, to make any of these claims.
Usually career-ending, absolutely. If you're
completely.
A pilot, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, back in after World War II, the Project Blue Book again. That these pilots that had these episodes, they called them, right, where they had these encounters, they were taken off the active roster. They weren't flying. They weren't allowed to fly anymore because clearly they thought, oh, they're neck deep in butterfly territory. They're crazies.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm sure there are crazy people out there in the world. Of course there are. But just because somebody experiences something amazing or unusual or strange and terrifying doesn't mean they're insane. And then you've got these mass hallucinations. Oh, yeah, mass hallucinations. That's what it was.
When
No.
does that ever happen to anyone anywhere?
Well, this is a good point because people keep saying this. And the answer is, I couldn't find a single verifiable case of mass hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
Not one. People talk about it a lot, but I haven't seen a single verifiable case. Because in order to hallucinate en masse, you would probably have to do some hypnosis before. You have to hypnotize a whole bunch of people and, prep them to make sure they have the same delusion. So unless it's a pre-planned event, a spontaneous event is as a delusion, a hallucination, highly unlikely, right? Again, my opinion. So we have to then ask ourselves, what is it then? What does it all mean? Where does it all go? And this is where Dave and I have spent, well, the better part of our lives, really, asking these questions. And what it has done for us these last 8 years on this particular show was it has given us the ability to focus in on and spend a lot more time on the research and actually put in the effort to research certain things and bring you information on a specific topic.
Because in our
which we have done.
Because in our lives, it had taken the back seat. Now it's at
Yeah.
least in the front seat with us.
Yeah,
With as far as time boxing is concerned.
Yeah, and the thing is, even though we might want to do it, right, Dave? Mm-hmm. we still I don't really have the time, I can't do it. But if you've got a show waiting for you at the end of the week, you do, or at least this is our ethos. We want to bring everybody out there at least something interesting to listen to, something factual, something that maybe makes them think, maybe some entertainment, that'd be nice. But it has to be something worthwhile. Otherwise, why sit here for 2 hours and just talk at you? And why would you make the time, and come and listen to us if you didn't get anything out of it? So it was an excuse, I guess, more or less, a good excuse to compile these show notes, of which we now have many, 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 many pages.
There's an
almanac. And there's an almanac. And today's show, which is show number 400, really. We have 58 pages, A4 pages. For you, it's somewhat expanded on the last time we did the hypothesis, including the Epiphany. There's a bit more detail around a few things that I think is important, and we need to go into it in order to understand the bigger picture. But Dave and I have come up with a working hypothesis, a model of what our reality could be. Now we need to go over some ground first, right? That's important, and make you understand, how it hangs together, maybe give you like an easy entry point into the mystery, as it were, and then we're going to elaborate on that, and we're going to build on it over the next few weeks. I would say this is November. I want to say probably potentially into the new year, potentially, depending on how fast we can go. But we have addressed, a multitude of seemingly unrelated and divergent subjects over these past 399 shows, 8 years. A couple hours every Sunday, sometimes more than 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And this show cycle, Dave, is designed obviously to draw these subjects together and show potential links and common threads. And I think we take them maybe 4 or 5 at a time. And these are the things that we've discussed with you guys and gals, of course, in the past. Ancient high civilization, ancient technology, gold, specifically orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, immortality, right? Me too, buddy, me too. Immortality and extreme longevity, UFOs. Dave?
Dating, and in that, do you want me to go through the description?
Yes, absolutely.
Dating in geology may be relative or absolute. Relative dating is done by observing fossils as described above and recording which fossil is younger, which is older. The discovery of means of absolute dating in the early 1900s was a huge advance. The methods are all based on radioactive decay, as you know. So we've also spoken about the Yeti or the Ulma, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Becky, there was a recent sighting down near me.
I know. I know.
Yeah, there was another topic, cryptozoology, big cats and dogs, for instance. You know, the black panther you might see, crazy stuff that people see out, you know, from this, just catch a glimpse of. There's dimensional shift phenomena, the Voynich manuscript, for instance, the Abydos Temple, lintel, the man from Tured, and there's many, many more we mentioned in those shows. Also, Meki, I want you to talk about the next one.
Yeah, sure. Look, we've talked about the moon mysteries. It's one of my personal favorite one, because it's just a massive topic and one of the most controversial things we've ever discussed.
And the most
potential. Yes. Oh, and yeah, 100%. So all these, and we won't go into this right now, and we might just do a moon show just after this, just because it's piqued my interest yet again. But you know, absolutely, coincidences are massive, and Jose Escamilla, of course,
another one
who passed away and did fantastic work on highlighting these moon mysteries. He analyzed the Clementine mission pictures. He's also the gentleman who discovered the rod phenomenon, which has been much maligned. But I urge you to look at this in some detail yourselves. And then, of course, it leads into potential NASA cover-ups, right? Never straight. That's it. And look, if you look at some of the evidence in that, you have to ask yourself, well, what's happened there? I mean, you know, some pictures clearly are not the originals. They look like they've been doctored, right? And then people have come forward and say, yeah, we've changed photos. You know, we've done that. Vanished people. I think that was called 811 or 611? Was called, what was the number there? I forget now what the number was. But essentially there was this 411. Thank you. There's this parks mystery, right? In America specifically, but not just in America. People seem to vanish in national parks, and under really very strange circumstances, right? We spent a bit of time on that. 9/11. Yeah, I said it. And false. I don't care. False flag operations. They're real enough. Deja vu. We didn't actually cover off recently as part of another one. Dave, what's next?
Okay, one of my favorites, ghosts, because I've been in rooms where they've appeared, but not to me. I've felt them, and I've seen physical presence indicated by their being. The mind-body problem. This is a disconnect between the mind and the body. And it leaves room for a... Becky?
Space?
No, the mind-body problem also leaves room for there being, as we've just recently spoken about, the cloud memory or a soul, the description of a soul that is able to go from one person to the next. As in reincarnation. So the mind-body problem is a separate thing from reincarnation, but I think because of all of these things are connected in some way, there's something there. And look, ESP and remote viewing, we know that Montauk, we know that the three-letter agencies that were looking into this, and it's a real thing, and it's also evident if you have ever, been busted looking at someone that you thought was interesting to you. There's something there, and you've proven it to yourself that it's real. We just don't have the manual. The manual was either hidden in the Vatican library and never propagated to us. We don't know, or promulgated to us. Dreams is one of Meki's favorite things, and this is a place where we're truly free, isn't it, Meki?
I think so.
We're truly free to be who we are, and it makes sense. And it seems like that's where we are when we're offline here. We're there, and we can actually play. We can do what we want to do, and we know. And everything's, even though it's a simpler environment, it's there for us, and we understand it. Maybe that's the staging area for the Akashic record. Maybe it's a similar experience. I'll let you do the next one.
Sure. Quantum mind and biocentrism, right? What does it all mean? And when you start talking about quantum mechanics specifically, and we've done a lot, and we will again in this show cycle, it just, none of it makes sense. Our universe just stops functioning properly. Then we looked at things like the holographic universe theory, the electric universe theory, the universe as a simulation. There's actually a mathematical formula, that proves, well, in inverted commas, that it is much more likely that we are living in a simulation than not.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, right? So it's really odd if you think about it. It's mathematically speaking, it is more likely we are, ones and zeros in some computer, or maybe qubits, as it were, in some computer system, rather than living, breathing people.
Before you say one more word, remember that mathematics proved the existence of planets before we could see them. So by using that argument, the maths is proving this as a simulation before we can truly identify it as a simulation. So
I know.
I think there's something in that.
And to be honest, this is actually probably one of the central pillars of the hypothesis, that in fact this reality, such as it is not the real reality. And I know this, we're getting into some semantics here.
Don't forget.
Oh no! Look, absolutely. You have to tighten it. Get a rubber band and make sure it doesn't fly off your head. But yeah. So look, I don't want to take anything away from the rest of the show, but certainly it is clear to us that the world as it is, and I like to quote here from I think it was Morpheus who said it in the Matrix movie. This is the world. The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over the eyes. So the true reality we cannot perceive of, and we cannot perceive of it because we are limited in our physical bodies. And we've discussed this at length. Oh yeah, no worries, mate. We've discussed this at length in some other shows, but I want to quickly mention it here as an introductory to the show cycle. There are very many anomalies, right? That don't make any sense, and the greatest anomaly is our physical structure. So we've got two forward-facing eyes, right? We have a sense of forward, backwards, up, down, left, right, and so forth, right? And we have these physical limitations already, which give us a linear view of the world. Exactly what I believe. Whoever put this in place wants us to have a linear view of everything. And I think nothing could be further from the truth. As mathematics seems to be bearing out, quantum physics as well, we are pre-programmed physically, biologically, to think a certain way and be extremely limited in our understanding of the universe and the multiverse, as a matter of fact. But we'll get to that later. I know it's only a few minutes, so let me see if I can get a few more in. Dimensional travelers, shift anomalies, the Bell, skinwalker wrench, and so forth. The Mandela effect, one of my favorite mysteries, if it is real. Time travel, of course. Secret societies. You tell me, Dave, when the music starts. Magic, death and resurrection, mind control. Dave, you want to take it?
Fiat currency and the monetary system, the greatest long con in history. Just leaving that there with a special gap. Comparative mythology and specifically flood myths. We touched on that in the last 399 shows. We've spoken about depopulation agendas and Ebola, as well as other diseases and genetically engineered mosquitoes, etc. Do your research. Linguistic mysteries. That's the connection of languages and isolates and how they started or how they didn't start, how they've transformed, and how that you're able to identify a sudden creation of a language. One of my favorites, telepathy and the original language. That was one that I had to salute up my flagpole. That one, that was an awesome get. Myths, legends, folk and fairy tales. Another one of Meki's favorites, being from Europe and having connection to those personally, those fairy tales. And it's an extraordinary thing. Meki, I'll let you round them out.
No worries, mate. We talked about giants, the Igigi, and that really blew my mind because I had no idea about that, to be honest. I guess, related megalithic cultures. We spoke about utopia, And our guests have included Jim Mars, Jose Escamilla, Lauren Eisenhower, Solaris, of course, Lloyd Pye, Carrie Cassidy, Ola Damagard, Dane Wigington, Stan Deyo, Bill Bryson, Stanton Friedman, to name but a few. And thank you so much for giving us your time and letting us interview you and share your thoughts and ideas and opinions with the world. I think we are pretty close to the music, so I don't want to...
3 minutes still.
Oh, we do have 3 minutes? Oh, let's, in that case, I will go down the rabbit hole very quickly. Yes, no, I won't, because let's leave that for the other side. But I do want to spend just a couple of minutes on our guests. And as I said earlier, Dave, and then jump in anytime you want, most of them, when we asked them, what does it all mean? And when we explained to them our take on things, even off air, there was a lot of agreement and going, yeah, look, I think you guys are on the right track, and some of the other researchers, certainly Jim Mars, I mean, he was all over this. They said, yeah, look, there's definitely more going on. It's been with us for tens of thousands of years. It's a lot older and it's a lot bigger than anybody assumes. So we need to expand our view on these mysteries. And I know some people like Yeti and other people like UFOs, and the third group likes Atlantis, and other people again like to talk about, what you may call it, the harp installations and whatnot. That's all good. That's goodness, right? But please, everybody out there, do not look at these phenomena in isolation. Most of these things are connected. All the things we just rattled off, Dave and I, right? All these things that we've just rattled off are all connected. Why is that? Because they're all part of the world, the reality we inhabit. Okay, and it doesn't matter where you start your journey. It doesn't matter which piece of the tapestry you peel off first,
or you fell into by mistake,
or you fell into. That's right. It happened.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these people they set out to debunk this stuff, and they go, "Oh my God,
it's real.
There's something. Yeah, it's real. There's something here.
Yeah.
There's something here.
Who knew? And why wasn't anyone else looking at it? But I did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There goes your career usually. Right? So Mickey, we've only got another minute, right? So you've mentioned a whole bunch of guests, and I just wanted to roll through some more. So Judy Carroll, Susan Chancellor, Andy Thomas, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, as we know as the hair man, Mike Barra, Mary Rodwell, Kathleen Marden, Brian Forrester, like you mentioned, Stando, Thomas J. Wolfenden, Tony Healy, he's our cryptoid zoologist here, George Simpson as well, James Bartley, Christopher O'Brien, Clifford Stone, another one of those the guys who came out
great.
52 existing ancient alien societies that are in touch with us. Gerald Salente as well, Barry Taylor. Man, the list goes on. It's a privilege to be able to get these people to talk on air with us.
And bear in mind, none of these people are paid, and neither are we. So they're not paying gigs coming to us, talking to us. They just want to spread the information, but this is what this is.
All right, there's the music, guys. We'll see you after a short break. Oh, and donate.
We're all indoctrinated early on to live within that box. This box is not of our choosing, yet most of us spend living their lives in that box. Most never know it.
Number 2 of the 10 rules that we should first consider. The box is set up to be self-perpetuating.
Correct. Number 3, agencies within the box have become privy of its existence and exploit the nature of the box for their own purposes.
Number 4, there is no physical escape from the box. There is no out as perceived within our 4-dimensional existence.
Everything within the box, which we deem good and right, as it enables us to live in the box, is in fact the exact opposite.
Wow. These rules make it rules. Number 6, this knowledge is the most dangerous knowledge, and in the past, most who purported to know it or were suspected of knowing were persecuted and killed. It was knowledge handed from master to disciple, never written down.
That is actually true. The knowledge at this point in time is slowly seeping into the general population, ever so slowly.
Number 8, we seem to be approaching critical mass, a rapture-like event potentially which would free us from the box.
The best way to stop this awareness cascade, as we like to call it, is mass destruction and mass death, as it has happened in the past, is our opinion.
Number 10, one must acknowledge the box before one can think of planning an escape.
Okay, so those are the considerations we'd like you to keep in your mind. I mean, more or less, if you can. Because it's important to understand that this is our platform from which we start. If you believe that the world is exactly how it should be and there's nothing wrong with it, you don't have a splinter in your mind, you don't think that anything is kept from you, this is probably not going to be your show. Okay, you're not going to enjoy it very much. But if there's even the hint of a doubt within you that might, make you question the nature of our reality, our existence, what it's all about, and how we came to be here, and why we are still here, and what is this God person anyway? So if you've got any of these questions, and we will discuss this, by the way, make no mistake, then you will understand. Then you will, this is the right show for you. You will enjoy it. I hope. I hope you get something out of it. You might have heard it before. This is an expanded version of the things we discussed 100 shows ago. It's almost 3 years, right, Dave? Is that right? That's about right. No, something like that. So let's start with one of the fundamental questions of our existence. And this is really where we need. We could start anywhere, but I think, Dave, right? It's good to start with this one because it will happen to virtually everybody, and it really is. While it is never at the top of mind, it is always on the list of things we worry about. And this is, why do we die? Why do we die? Simple question, right? You think, we die because, we have an accident or we old age. But the truth is, only recently did we find out, scientifically speaking, why we actually die. Okay? Now, of course, again, if you have an accident or you're shot or you fall off a building or you get a terrible disease, we all know why you die. That's pretty straightforward stuff. But this is really about aging death. Why do we age? And why does this aging then lead to death? Even if you have no accidents, if no one shoots you in the head, if you're not decapitated, if you don't fall down a flight of stairs, you still die, Dave. You could live the most careful life in the world, never take a single drug, don't drink alcohol, don't eat red meat, then stay away from all cancers. We'll talk about that too.
Like the oldest woman said.
Stay away from men, right? So why do we die? So look, there, and this is new, there are a number of theories on aging. And no single theory on how and why people age is able to account for all aspects of aging. And this was taken from Science Clarified, the webpage. But most take one of two approaches. One, that humans are genetically programmed to age and die. I want to say this again. That humans are genetically programmed to age and die. And two, that natural wear and tear causes aging and eventual death. So I think I agree with both of those statements. That's exactly where we are. Arguments in favor of genetic programming cite hormonal control and or limited cell division, reproduction, as the mechanisms involved in the aging process. And we'll spend some time on this. One hormonal approach focuses on the hypothalamus, which is at the base of the forebrain, which controls the production of growth hormones, which influence growth and development in the pituitary gland. It is thought that, possibly due to the action of a hormonal clock, the hypothalamus either slows down normal hormonal function or that it becomes more error-prone with time, leading to physiological aging. Dave?
Repeated experiments have shown that human cells grown in tissue culture in the laboratory will divide only about 50 times before they die. Exceptions are cancer cells, which have unlimited growth, and brain and muscle cells, which do not divide after birth. This suggests a genetic clock that limits how many times cells can divide. It is thought that as cell division decreases, as it does in older people, the functioning of the body also begins to slow down, resulting in aging and eventual death. The wear and tear theory of aging and death suggests that genes, the molecules that carry instructions for passing on specific traits from one generation to another, are altered by random mutations, that's changes in form, that accumulate over time, gradually leading to aging and disease. Environmental agents such as X-rays, ultraviolet radiation, and chemical toxins can contribute to mutation processes. All cells have the ability to repair damaged DNA. We know what that is. Was it deoxyribonucleic acid? I nearly got it. The molecular basis of heredity. But when these repair mechanisms fail, mutations can accumulate. The failure is also thought to be a factor in the development of cancer.
Now,
we have a head on this one.
I know, right? We certainly do, and in fact, some of it will come through in the show here. Now, bear this in mind. So this is not speculation. This is where science today is. This is what we believe. You know, as a human race, our knowledge of aging and death. That's what we think happens. Now, we're going to go into some more detail as we go along, but just bear in mind that these are the things that we know now, and this is the mystery. This is the mystery. And I want to give you a quote here, and then you can guess where that quote is from. From every tree in the garden did he grant them to eat, save but one. And that tree in the center of the garden was called the tree of life. And the snake said to Eve, eat of this fruit, and you will become as God and never die. Now, I'll give it away. That's Genesis 3:1. So why is this here? Sorry?
Partial credit.
Partial credit. Now, why is this here? Why, Mackie? Why do you have to bring religion into this? Because religion is the best vehicle to carry forward memory that we have thought of yet, right? The Word of God, and nothing is more sacred. Now, is it corrupted? Does it change? Yeah, absolutely. Is the full intent, the full meaning lost? Yeah, probably. But there's still a shadow of truth within
truth there.
Yeah. Exactly, they're nuggets, right? Now, that's why this is here, and it is here because people think that we were kicked out of Eden. If we take the biblical story for a second, right? People think we're kicked out of Eden because we ate from the tree of knowledge. That's not true. That is not true. Let me say it again. Go back to your Sunday school notes if you have to, but it's not true. Go read the Bible for crying out loud if you really want to know. No, we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden so we wouldn't eat from the second tree, the tree of life. Yes, we shouldn't have eaten from the tree of knowledge. That was bad. But the fear here was that we eat from the tree of life and become like God. So they put an angel in front of it with a flaming sword and kicked us out of Eden. So we would not eat from the tree of life and become as God and never die. Think of this, and don't think of it as this is not an apple. There's no apple tree, okay? Mm-hmm. Don't think of it as an actual tree somewhere, okay? Think of it as a remembered thing. Think of it as a memory that has been passed down, through eons, as to what actually happened and why we lost or have fallen from grace, as some people call it. And I want to say something here before, Dave. This is important, and I'm happy for you to make your own statement. But since this is the first show of the hypothesis cycle, and I feel it incumbent upon me to make this statement. I am not a religious man. I am not a creationist in any sense of the word. I'm a doubter, I'm a skeptic, and I'm a searcher for the truth. Yes, all of those things. And I will take whatever sources I can to get to it. I will quote from any text I can find that leads me to anything even resembling the truth. Okay? But I am not religious, and I am not a creationist. Because as we go through the show, you'll think, oh, he's a creationist. No, I'm not. I'm not. But there are things out there that will brand me. When I say things out there are things in the theory here, or the hypothesis, that will brand me a creationist. I'm happy for you, Dave, to make your statement here.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to add, I'm not particularly an evolutionist when it comes to the human race. There's a gap and it doesn't fit and nothing seems to work. And Lloyd Pye was right. You can't compress 48 chromosomes down to 46. You just can't do it. It never happened in any other tree. Why should it happen in ours? Intervention, and I'm fully on the Anunnaki Sumerian text side. However, there's something very peculiar about the religious text, which seems to have the same origin as the Sumerian text, in that, but where every time it's a god, it's it was an alien, for instance. There's nuggets of truth everywhere, and I believe that I share this passion for truth at the same time, and I'm not an atheist. I believe that there's probably something. I don't know what it is, but when I find it and I can shake its hand and it says, you know what, I'm your God, I'll believe it. But I'm not against religion. I am not for religion, but I believe the text is one of our most accurate carries through all of its history, that it provides one of the best places for good quotes, because the quotes are the things that were kept as true as possible. Yes, and I agree with Meki, some of the meaning has been lost. But if I'm branded any of those things like Meki or anything else, for instance, don't tell me I'm wrong. There's a whole... Meki laughs. There's a whole thing to do with that. All I'm going to say is, you know what, if you can do your research and prove to me or show me how you got to where you got to, I'll take that on board. Right? Yeah. So we're still open-minded. I know I am. I know Meki is. But yeah, just be careful when you're doing your study.
Correct, and it really is about, look. Everybody's journey is different, right? My wish is for everybody to have a journey. Mm-hmm. That's my wish. A lot of people don't have journeys, right? They just take on it's an inherited opinion that they've quoted earlier. And then just to me as well in the chat room, because this is a question from the chat room here. Are you an atheist? No, I'm not an atheist. I very much believe in something well beyond the physical, mm-hmm. And I guess the best word is God, because I don't think the concept is quite right in my opinion. Right, and no, I certainly don't think this universe is an accident at all. And as we discuss the hypothesis, you will understand why I don't think that. And I think the very reason we're here is for this universe to exist. That's my epiphany, right? No, definitely not. I'm not an atheist. I'm agnostic, because I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. And I do have a strong feeling, though. I've got a fairly deep spirituality, I guess you want to call it. And no, this universe is not an accident. The multiverse is not an accident. I think we're looking at this all wrong. Okay, even to ask those questions, I think is wrong, because it's not the right context to look at this, or any reality for that matter. Now, to get back to the mystery. Now, we've quoted from the Bible, and the key thing here I wanted to make point out was that it was the reason we were kicked out of, or fallen from grace, or whatever you want to call it, is because they didn't want us to eat from the tree of life. There are similar stories in other cultures where Gilgamesh searching for immortality, Prometheus bringing us light or fire, which is, in my opinion, the same as knowledge. So different morsels of information were remembered by different tribes, by different nations throughout the world. But let's get back to our life here, our lives. In 1786, the average life expectancy was just 24 years. 100 years later, in 1886, it doubled to 48 years. Now you think, oh my God, it's not really very old, is it? In fact, I've well lived into my old age right now, to be honest, mm-hmm. both Dave as well, right? Right now, and when we say right now, this is obviously now a couple of years old, a newborn can expect to live to an average age of 76 years. With recent discoveries in biology, many scientists predict that life expectancy will continue to triple digits. In fact, if they're correct, humans shouldn't have to die at all in the future. Over half the baby boomers, I'm quoting here, in America are going to see their 100th birthday and beyond in excellent health. We're looking at lifespans for the baby boomers and the generation after, the baby boomers, that is, of course, of about 120 to 150 years of age. And that's Dr. Ronald Klutz of the American Academy of Anti-Aging. Dave?
Anti-aging medicine is not about stretching out the last years of life. It's about stretching out the middle years of life and actually compressing those last years to a few years of life so that diseases of aging can happen very, very late in the life cycle, just before death, or don't happen at all. Same fellow, Dr. Klotz. The cause of what we call aging is now being understood, and this is why we've said this. Immortality has silently been revealing itself to scientists like Dr. John Langmore of the University of Michigan's Department of Biology. Dr. Langmore and his group looked inside human cells at the very essence of a human life. The DNA molecule. Specifically, Dr. Langmore looked at the tips of the DNA molecule, a previously overlooked part of the double helix molecule, that contain a kind of chain of repeating pairs of enzymes, called telomeres. These molecular chains have often been compared to the blank leaders on film and recording tape. Indeed, telomeres seem to perform a similar function. Or the ends on your shoelaces, those little plastic tips that stop it unraveling.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good analogy. Now, before we go into a quick interlude and discuss what telomeres exactly are, I would like to address the chat room, because again, the beautiful thing about this medium is that you can ask questions. If you're listening to the show live and not on YouTube or in the archives of Revolution Radio, you can be in the chat and me asked a very good question. If I'm not a creationist, right? Me believes, I'm saying I don't believe this universe was created. And if I don't believe it was an accident, then what is the alternative? Excellent question, right? Because, I mean, in our limited understanding of reality, there's really only two. Either it was made by someone or it happened, right? These are the two alternatives that you have. Now, I believe, and it's not a cop-out, but I really believe that we are extremely limited in our perception of the nature of reality, and we can only perceive of these two. I don't think in reality that these are the only two options. But to be clear, this particular universe we're inhabiting, and then I'm sort of jumping ahead several weeks, but since the question was asked, let's address it. This particular universe, I don't know what purpose it fulfills. I really don't. But I do know that we are critical to the existence of this universe, not the multiverse, this particular universe. If you look at the superposition curve, superposition means every possible scenario in the quantum world it happens on a curve, right? There it is, or wave, or whatever you call it, and it is all in existence until it is measured, and we call it observed, but the better word to use, until it is measured, because I'm not talking about two eyeballs looking at it, right? I'm talking about a measuring device, and it collapses into this reality. Now, I still believe the measurement needs to be perceived by a consciousness. And I'm not talking about the disembodied consciousness at all. I'm talking about the consciousness that's within us. And I'm not making an argument for disembodied consciousness at this point either, because I've seen people go down that rabbit hole and then all of a sudden not talk about the issue at hand, but about disembodied consciousness and how it's not possible. And therefore, what they believe about quantum physics is all wrong. So I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Okay? But I do believe that we, you, me, and most of the listeners, I should think, are extremely limited in our abilities in this particular reality, in our physical bodies, and deliberately so, is my opinion. I don't know why it is so important for this particular universe to exist with us in it. I don't. And then I'm still working on that. But it's clear that someone thinks it's important to have it collapse. And it seems to be important that we are in it as well, to observe it, but maybe more so to be in it, because we can't get out of it. And then we're going to talk about this as well, the reincarnation cycles and all that. We seem to be stuck here. And I completely disagree. I completely disagree with the statement that we're here to learn things. I mean, if we learn something along the way, awesome. Beautiful, right? That's good. I'm not at all saying we shouldn't, but I don't think our purpose of being reincarnated into this reality is about learning. It's just about being here. and some of us learn, most of us do not. That's why there's still so many of us here, and sometimes some come back, it seems, and trying to help us. Some seem to remember past lives and try to help us, right? What else? Sorry. It's just no, I agree. Sorry, me says that our language is limited. No, not only that. Our language is a limiting factor. Language itself is a limiting factor. If you listen to our shows about the telepathy and the true language, we believe that the true language was in fact telepathic, and we might have used, vocalization for singing and other things, maybe for some rites or who knows. But the true communication was only possible from mind to mind, or many minds to many minds, potentially, right? Like a broadcast, because you're not thinking words at someone. Telepathy, in my mind, and Dave agrees with me, I know, is not thinking words at someone. You're thinking concepts, ideas,
that's the definition,
feelings.
is thinking words at someone.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not what we're talking about, right? And I think true communication between two minds here in this universe, in this reality, is only possible through telepathy, because even if you speak the same language. And then one of my colleagues has this wonderful phrase when people argue, "You're divided by a common language." Yeah, because even if we have the same language, we still argue. We still can't come to an agreement because we don't fully communicate what we mean most of the time. And forget about trying to talk to someone that doesn't speak your language. Good luck with that. And again, in the esteemed opinion of the hypothesis, this was a deliberate act, and I do urge you to look at our show about language. A deliberate act to divide us, to further divide us, to further limit our abilities. Right? And it's very complex. It is very, very, very complex.
But as Mick is suggesting here, that there's more to it than that quick discussion. It's a very deep discussion about the object of language. And there's the motive behind splitting us up, and there's a whole bunch of things just to slow us down.
Yeah, 100%. Now, look, interesting. I don't want to get into a discussion about God and not God. I mean, that will come into it at some point, but it is not the ultimate purpose. And again, I want to say this, and I'm sort of jumping ahead here a little bit, but I believe that the God of this system of things is not the God that everybody thinks about. So again, we have been fooled into believing one thing to be true, when in fact the exact opposite is true. But look, quick interlude to telomeres, and please ask questions in the chat room. I really enjoy that. It means that everybody's at least listening to some of the things we're saying. And look, if you've got a question in the chat room, I guarantee you people out in listener land that are in the chat room have similar questions as well, right? Now, what exactly are telomeres? And as Dave has said, they're like the little tips on your shoelaces. The telomeres are special, essential DNA sequences at both ends of each chromosome. Each time chromosomes replicate, a small amount of the DNA at both ends is lost by an uncertain mechanism. So we don't know that this is the built-in kill switch. It's like lighting a fuse, right? And then you see just burn down. But we don't know what the mechanism is that shortens them. Because human telomeres shorten at a much faster rate than many other lower organisms, we speculate that this telomere shortening probably has a beneficial effect for humans. I can't think of one. Namely, mortality. So the theory is that mortality is good, right? To die is a good thing. The telomere hypothesis of aging postulates that as the telomeres naturally shorten during the lifetime of an individual, a signal or set of signals is given to the cells to cause the cells to cease growing, which is called, that particular process is called senescence. At birth, human telomeres are about 10,000 base pairs long. But by 100 years of age, this has been reduced to about 5,000 base pairs. Now, a telomerase, right, telomerase, is actually an enzyme, a catalytic protein to be precise, that is able to arrest or reverse this shortening process, telomerase. Normally, telomerase are used to increase the length of telomeres during the formation of sperm and perhaps eggs, thus ensuring that our offspring inherit long, or in inverted commas young, telomeres to propagate the species. During the replication process, the spiral DNA molecule must split in half and reassemble a copy of itself, protecting the vital DNA molecule from being copied out of sync. Telomeres provide a kind of buffer zone where misalignments, which are inevitable, will not result in any of the important DNA code being lost. Perhaps the best analogy is to compare the telomeres to the white margin surrounding an important typewritten document. In this analogy, the printed text is the vital DNA, while the white space is the blank telomeres. I like Dave's explanation of the lace better. Dave?
Imagine that this paper is repeatedly slapped on a copy machine, a copy is made, and then a copy is used to make another copy. Each time the paper is subject to errors of alignment, and these errors accumulate. After enough copying, it is probable that the white space will diminish and some of the actual text will not be copied. That's what happens inside our cells, and it is the reason we get old and die. Well, that's a rather simplistic view, but yes, I'll go with that. As any cell gets older, it is under attack by oxides and free radicals in the body and the environment. We survive as living beings because our cells have the ability to duplicate and replicate themselves before being killed by these natural causes. Each time our cells divide, the DNA molecule makes a copy of itself. But the procedure is very complex and not perfect. Usually a small portion of the DNA molecule is lost, misaligned, and not copied. Since errors are more frequent on the ends of the DNA molecule, this area of the telomere does not contain any important DNA information, and the effect is insignificant. It is the junk DNA that's designed to be disposable, and telomeres programmed to die. Scientists observe that the length of the telomere chains becomes shorter as we grow older. Eventually, the telomeres become so short that a cell replication produces lethal errors or missing pieces of DNA sequence, ending the cell's ability to replicate itself. This point, when the cell has lost vital DNA code and cannot reproduce, is called the Hayflick limit. It's the measure of how many times a cell can copy itself before it dies. Some cells in our body have the very high Hayflick limit. The cells that line the inside of your mouth and intestines, for example, are constantly being worn away and replaced. Indeed, these cells appear to have the ability to regrow telomeres even in aged bodies. Scientists were curious why some cells shut down telomere growth with age and some do not. Dr. Langmore used physical, biochemical, and genetic techniques to study the structure and function of telomeres. His group developed a cell-free system to reconstitute functional model telomeres using synthetic DNA and studied the mechanisms by which telomeres normally stabilize chromosomes and how shortening of telomeres could cause instability. The protein factors responsible for stabilizing the ends of chromosomes are being identified, cloned, and studied. Electron microscopy is used to directly visualize the structure of the model telomeres. Dr. Langmore's group used enzymatic assays to determine the structure of telomere DNA in normal and abnormal cell growth in vivo and in vitro in order to address specific hypotheses about the role of telomeres in aging and cancer. Scientists have discovered an important enzyme that can turn the telomere production on the DNA molecule on and off. It's called telomerase, as Meki, my esteemed co-host, mentioned just a minute ago. Not surprisingly, it seems that as we get older, the amount of telomerase in our cells decreases. Meki.
And then, of course, there's the cancer problem. Usually, if a cell makes an error in copying itself, the error will prevent the cell from duplicating itself in the future. So, if there's an error in the cell will not duplicate. So the mistake remains limited. But with cancer, cells with errors somehow turn on the production of telomerase and make the mutant cell immortal. So let me say this again. Cells with errors somehow turn on the production of telomerase. Right? It's not that telomerase is turned on and the errors occur, because that's the argument we're going to hear in a second. Mm-hmm. Now, aberrant cells can reproduce unchecked and outlive normal cells. This is the process that creates tumors. So in essence, a tumor, a cancer, is immortal. It's not a tumor. It's a great big tumor. And it's immortal, okay?
Yeah.
Your nemesis, our nemesis, the big C, is an immortal being. Since we all have mutant precancerous cells in our bodies, nature has decided, and I love this, nature has decided, this is people, that is, see,
people paid to
sorry,
do this scientifically.
No, but yeah, this is where I guess it's language. I get it, but this is where the hypocrisy of this whole argument of evolution versus creationism really gets the better of me. I have no opinion either way. Personally, I believe in punctuated equilibrium, including some interference, of course, along the way with some species. But punctuated equilibrium, look it up yourselves.
Catastrophism.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best ways to put it, but on a biological scale as well. Now, that's where my mind is at, right? For right now, if you ask me, if you nail me down, give me an opinion. What is it? Evolution, creationism? I say it is punctuated equilibrium coupled with interference. Anyway, but they're saying here that nature decided this. Nature now is an entity that makes decisions for us.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
So now this is actually paganism, because nature used to be a goddess. The goddess of nature. I know it's language. I know people go, that's not what we mean. Well, then don't say it. If this is not what you mean, don't say it. What you mean is, okay.
We don't know.
We don't know. Okay. It is not nature is making a decision. Nature. So what you should, okay, let's say this. The sentence how it should read is this: since we all have mutant precancerous cells in our bodies, some unknown mechanism or randomly something happens to shut off the telomerase as we age. Mm-hmm. But we know that's not true. So this is the whole kill switch thing. Nature has decided. No, someone has decided to shut off the telomerase as we age. Okay? Not nature. Because nature doesn't give a hoot. Okay? Nature has not decided anything. Because this is the whole point of evolution and the evolutionary theory.
Nature
there are no
doesn't
decisions.
Have meetings.
There's
no agenda.
There's no committee.
There's no committee.
Okay, sorry, I have to say this because this is really getting my goat, right? Now, in evolutionary theory, we're talking about a whole bunch of random mutations, right? That's what happens. They're random mutations, sometimes driven by environmental factors, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, most of the time driven by environmental factors. And whoever has the best or most fitting random mutation, at that time survives.
They prosper.
Yeah, that's what's called survival of the fittest, right? Not the strongest, not the biggest, not the largest, not the smartest, but survival of the fittest. The one most fit for that environmental or the environmental change. Mm-hmm. But it is not a guided process, according to evolutionary theory. It is not a guided process. Okay, I dig it. But you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. Either it is a guided process or it is not. If it is not, right, and I'm gonna go a little off script here because this is an important point to understand and make. And this is something that I've asked everybody out there in the world, in the scientific world. Nobody has given me a satisfactory answer. 42. Yeah, that's right, SJ. 42. That's the answer. But what was the question, man? What was the question? So, if evolution is truly the collective outcome of a myriad of random mutations, mutations, and whatever mutation at the time fit best, that species survived, right? If that is true, then where are the multitudes of fossils with the failed mutations? And don't tell me dinosaurs, they all died out. No, they died out because there's the meteorite impact or whatever. But the point is, if there are only random mutations, which is one of the tenets of evolution, right? And I'm not speaking against evolution. I just want to be clear here where we are running into some problems. If they're only random mutations, then the vast majority of these mutations should be bad. It's just math. It's math. DNA is a complex thing, right? If you start screwing around with it, I reckon 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get something that you want. So where are those failures in the fossil record? Where is this mountain of giraffes with, I don't know, tentacles around growing out of his eyeballs? Where are the fish that have horns instead of fins? Well, no, because they're random mutations, right? It could be anything, Dave, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying here. So that's why I believe in something called punctuated equilibrium. So I believe that for whatever reason, and I'm not being a creationist here, it seems that our biology, when I say our, I'm talking about the global biology of all the species that we have here, responds to environmental changes. I don't think it's random at all. I think it responds to environmental changes with mutations that are beneficial for the survival of the species. That's what I believe.
I'm adding something to this, Mackie. So remember the study that was done with generational memory?
Yep.
So generational memory meant it was like 7 ideas or something like that. Not many bits to be able to store something, but the stored information was it saved the future generations. So if you were a fast runner or something, or you encountered something, or you were afraid of something, whatever it was, that got passed down. So by being passed down to the next generation, and they did it like 7 generations of mice, and they were still able to say that the blue thing was bad, right? That is one of those things that could have not just memory related, but there could be another component in that handing down, which was a successful trait. And I'm a staunch believer in there being a successful trait passed down of the most successful thing that you've been able to achieve, whether it's physical or mental, or maybe it's you're able to rather run fast but run for a long time, those kind of things. Whatever it was that was important before you replicated, that I think they get passed down. So given that the punctuated equilibrium is a thing, I think that that's one of those things. I think that also lends itself to being able to cope with the very quick change, like within generations of change.
Yeah. Look, exactly, right?
It makes
sense. So genetic memory, but look, it does make sense, right? And at some point we have to admit that this is not a completely random thing that's happening here. And as we go deeper into the hypothesis, you will understand that there's zero randomness here, right? And I'm not talking about determinism or no free choice. What I'm talking about is a tightly controlled box that we live in, a very, very tightly controlled little box. That's what I'm talking about. Now, to go back to the thing that set me off. Now, where were we? Nature decided something. Oh, yeah. That's right. Since we all have mutant precancerous cells in our bodies, I'm going to stay with the text here this time. Nature has decided, but we all know that's just a whole bunch of bogus, to shut off the I couldn't help myself, I know. To shut off the telomerase as we age, thus preventing these mutant cells from growing telomeres. That's completely... Now, let's just focus on this argument for a second. Right? Nature has decided to shut off the telomerase as we age, thus preventing these mutant cells from growing telomeres. But they turn it back on. Because the next sentence, it's a kind of programmed death, a trade-off to reduce our lifespan in order to save us from being riddled with tumors. Nevertheless, some precancerous cells manage to reactivate their telomeres. And this has caused the research to focus more on blocking telomere production rather than trying to extend it, which is exactly the wrong
That's right.
way of looking at it. This is like looking at it like, completely upside down, topsy-turvy, and we are now in the over-under.
Okay,
Sorry?
So in the way I see this, right? So Meckie's absolutely right. It's topsy-turvy. So if you have a condition in when something naturally decays, but it couldn't decay if you had a mechanism ticked, and in this case it's telomerase. So if you tick telomerase, it can't naturally degrade, right? Therefore, if it's not degrading, then it's more able to fight off or fend off the mutations that occur, because the mutations are less likely to occur. This whole paradox, Meckie, that they argue, we can't say that people can stay alive forever because the elite or the powers that be or whoever it is, the overlords tell us we're not allowed to say that, so we won't. What we'll say is, in my humor, I'll describe that it's their way of saying you're not allowed to have it. Immortality is wrong, and you can fear the thought of it, so just leave it alone.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's insanity, because it makes actually no sense to Anyway, okay.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know, right? Now, while this work while this work holds hope for stopping tumor cells from reproducing forever, it does little to extend healthy cells from being rejuvenated. And as Dave just said, if you had a healthy cell to start with, and it were protected by telomerase or telomerase, then it wouldn't need to be further protected because it's protected.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? So it's turning it off is what causes the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
So if you tell me nature decided to do this, then nature clearly has a whole different agenda, going on there. So in my opinion, the kill switch, yeah, the kill switch is a real thing. Mm-hmm. The kill switch is built in. It was built in by someone, and we get to that. In fact, we have a whole text. We have a text. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Epic of Atrahasis, which we'll get to in due course, which outlines very beautifully and very clearly where that happened. But, it's not even a question. It's not even like there it is. Take it or don't take it. Now, however, I'm going back to the text. If the molecular blocker could specifically target only cancerous cells without blocking telomerase activity in healthy cells, it could be a step towards human life extension if and when a pharmaceutical can be developed that activates telomerase in the body. I don't think a pharmaceutical is necessarily. But you know what's funny, Dave? I read a lot of science fiction. I enjoy that. I find it relaxing, and I do really like it. And a lot of novels in recent years that deal with the future, obviously, and science fiction usually does, talk about life extension. Like a lot of people that that live beyond the 21st, 22nd century, they live a lot longer. And one of the things that's being mentioned in these novels and short stories as a factor of this life extension is telomere therapy, right? It's telomere therapy. Thank you very much. So now, in essence, what we have just shared with you means that we have a built-in kill switch. I hope you could follow our logic here. And I beg any medical professional or a molecular biologist who has got a bone to pick to come and tell me where my thinking is wrong. Explain to me where my thinking is wrong. Everything I've read, every bit of research I've done over the last few years leads me to believe that it's a nonsensical argument to say that the turning off of telomerase, the enzyme, protects us from cancer. Mm. It is a nonsensical argument because, again, let's look at cancer for a second. Cancer finds its way into your body, right? If there is a problem with the copying process of your cells, a cell mutates. Now, if the mutation is due to an outside effect like radiation or maybe alcohol consumption or tobacco consumption, whatever it might be, like a toxic substance in your body, fair enough, right? There it is. It's nothing you can do about that. But for the most part, I think the cells lose their cohesiveness because the copying process becomes shorter because the telomeres shorten, and the cells themselves are then suffering from degradation. And that's what causes most of these cancers. So if we had telomerase in action, if it were protecting the telomeres, and now we know that in our body there are places like your stomach, lining up your in the inside of your mouth, where it still works, because we're not all getting mouth cancers all the time, do we, Dave?
No.
Oh wow, there's a shock. Do we always do all of us always get bowel and stomach cancers? I mean, we do get them, but do we get them all the time? No. Is that like a thing? Is like the major thing we die of? Is our mouth riddled with cancers and tumors? No.
I think we found that those locations who have had a never-ending onslaught of contact, have inevitably at some point failed to protect themselves. But this is what we're talking about. If your entire body was given the same protection, then it could survive a hell of an onslaught, a sustained onslaught, rather than the randomness that appears to be our contact with these same things now, right? But having a much higher success rate. Does that make sense? I hope that long stretch, but well thought.
No, but look, that's it, though, right? But look, I think we have got a cohesive argument here that states there is a kill switch because telomerase is switched off. Okay, it is switched off. The copying process is corrupted, and we age. That's what happens when the cells are not copied correctly. What you see as aging is the cells not copying properly anymore. Cancer is a side effect.
Okay, so just letting everyone know, when can you visibly see someone's actually aging? It's like 30 to 35, right? Is when people's bodies start to lose their cohesion. Just to use their own words.
Well, I mean, the thing is, would we still die? Yes, Dave, we would.
Yeah, we would.
I mean, if you fall off a building, you still die. If telomerase was still active, Dave, what we would arrest is the aging process, and I think we would arrest the development of most non-environmental cancers. Okay. So again, if you're exposed to asbestos, you smoke like a chimney, you drink like a fish, you take cocaine up the nose every day, something is going to give. Something is going to give. Now, if the telomerase were active, it probably would take a lot longer for you to die, but you would still die because you're abusing your body. It's just what happens, right? So it's the aging process that's arrested. We would still die of other causes, sure, right? But if we lived sensible lives and stayed away from physical danger, we could live for very, very long indeed.
And look, it's 7:51, and we've only got a few minutes. So I was thinking, Meki, just to round this topic out.
Sure.
For the listeners, Meki and I both know this, but we've only mentioned, we just touched on the topic, and I'd like to unpack it a little. And that is, what would life look like if we didn't have the kill switch? So it's the medical fraternity have said that they'd prefer if we could shorten the downfall at the end.
Yeah.
We've both mentioned in the past, Meki, that we're like infants in compared to someone who could live 100,000 years.
Yes, sir.
Right. So living like a 30-year-old or 35-year-old for give or take 100,000 years, right? And then having your growth period before that, and your the decline after that period. My goodness, imagine what you'd know.
I know. I completely agree. And look, we've met, like you said, so quite rightly, we are still children when we die. Even at the age of 100, we're still children.
That's right.
And we were robbed of the ability to grow up. I mean, look at the state of the world. If you give children free reign of the world, we did, and there it is. Yeah. and you're right. Yeah, thank you, Dave. We discussed this in the past as well when we talked about the giants, right? Is there another life stage? Because as you grow older in our current biological incarnation, you're a baby, infant, right? You're a toddler, then you're like a preschooler, I guess, if you want to call it that. You become a prepubescent, then you're a teenager, then you're a post-teenager, you're fully fledged young adult, and now fertile as well, so you can be sexually active. That's good for you. And then as you get older, the sexual organ, the sexual functions switch off. Your body changes. You actually have a different set of teeth from toddler to young adult, right? So your teeth change, right? And then other biological functions come into, like you get sexual maturity. That's a biological function that you would never know if you died as a child. You would never know that, right? And then as you get older, still you go through menopause. Women do, right? And your biological functions shut down. And if you didn't live to that age, you would never know that.
Bingo.
Right? If everybody died before the age of 40, right? You would never know that this is another life stage, right? Mm-hmm. And let's assume here for a second, and there's a whole bunch of other obviously hormones involved here, but the key thing we're focusing on, of course, is both the pituitary gland as well as telomerase. But the other hormones involved, right? But if you let's say you didn't age, for argument's sake, and these maybe didn't shut down or did shut down for whatever it may be, are there other life stages beyond that? Like when you turn 100, do you grow another set of teeth? Or would you grow taller? Or do you lose all your hair? Or do you grow new hair? We don't know because we don't live that long. But maybe there are genetic triggers that... has the music started?
I'm just testing.
Okay. Focusing on, of course, not. But both the... okay, maybe there are things in our DNA, as we grow older, that would have been switched on. Like again, if nobody ever lived past toddler stage, you wouldn't get your second set of teeth. You'd never know that you would get them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't live into old age, you wouldn't know that you lose your hair. You don't know that you get menopause. You don't know any of these things, right? But there it is. So as you live longer and older, let's say we were able to live longer. Is the music started? Older, and without the aging bit, though, right? Without the aging bit, what other life stages are we missing out on? And that was sort of some of the arguments we made for giants. Maybe it's just us, right? Living longer, right? And make no mistake, the gods we talk about, the Anunnaki and other gods, the Egyptian gods, they know that you would get them, right? And tens and hundreds of thousands of years. That's what it says. That not hundreds of years or thousands, but tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. You know what else? What that means? What it means is that all of a sudden, a spacefaring civilization is no longer a pipe dream, because the one thing that's killing us at the moment is, well, literally, is aging and our limited lifespan, right? If you live to 100, going to another star is a proposition of a lifetime.
That if you live to 10,000, we could easily traverse the distance, even at the current abilities.
Yeah. Your perspective changes. If you live to 100,000 years, stars travel. How long will it take? 1,000 years. Okay, I'll see you in 1,000 years then, right? And make no mistake, it means we are limited again by our specific place in the universe. We are orbiting. I know you flat earthers don't like to hear that, but we're orbiting the sun. It takes us, 12 months of